Welcome to Ten8. Ten8 is a more personal and journal-style series of articles by myself that will center around police management, criminology, and policing. The articles will not be the typical citation-driven essay style that I use. For those articles, please see my Medium page, published books such as Amazon, especially The Business of Policing, Volume 1, Crimes and Punishments in the 21st Century, or scientific published literature highlighted by The Business of Policing, Volume 2, Managing Ethical Police Conduct. Here I will post frequent thought streams on my personal philosophies. Thanks for listening in. Investigating YouTube's Restrictions on Science, Part 2. Well, welcome back to Part 2 of this series investigating the YouTube video advertising restrictions. I do not anticipate a Part 3, but with the weirdness that is YouTube policy, I suppose anything is possible. First things first. Seems as though it is time to celebrate. After 5 years of making video, I have some lifetime earnings to be proud of. Nearly $12. To bring us on to the same page, I am a public educator. I am not trying to spark outrage, take political sides, or be controversial. My main objective with my writings and videos is to relay the sciences to the topic at hand. Trust the science is something we are constantly hearing, but my experiences demonstrate that listening to the sciences is even less common than common sense, and we all know how much common sense is lacking these days. The YouTube monetization rules contain a clause that things like nudity, violence, and such are accepted under educational and artistic instances. Now, I understand that art is subjective, but these concepts have long existed in the realm of American censorship. For example, nudity that is educating on human anatomy would be accepted, as would presentations of violence by the news, police, and public information. And let's be very clear, I have a lifetime of dedication and experience in policing. Since I was 17 years old, I have had a singular mission. How do we police more effectively and safely? This basis of information includes being an anti-terrorism sergeant in the Marine Corps, a commander in the Baltimore Police Department, an international police consultant, on the ground and nationwide research since the rise of Black Lives Matter movement, an undergrad in criminal justice, a master's in business information technology, a doctorate in business management, groundbreaking research on ethics and morality, and thousands of discussions with activists, politicians, and more. There are some seriously counterintuitive and complex underpinnings to the history of policing, how it is implemented, and what is effective. This truth is so prominent in policing that pretty much everything you think you know is complete nonsense. Policing is very much like thermodynamics, where the first rule of thermodynamics is that if you think you know thermodynamics, then you do not know thermodynamics. The point of this braggadocious sounding narrative is to make clear that I am not your neighbor, your activist, your officer friendly, your police chief. I'm the one that works to advance the science of policing. I'm not here to defend it or condemn it. I am here as a resource, and it is up to you to take advantage of this knowledge. So, what happened to the videos that YouTube restricted? In part 1 of this series, I reported on the videos that YouTube limited, restricted, or banned. Now, I admit I feel particularly offended that YouTube is placing some overworked outsourcing from overseas or an individual completely ignorant on the topic in charge of my work's validity, much like their decisions on what information is true when it comes to their little warning labels that are no more than ramblings of fools. So, after a few weeks of requesting interviews, it did not go quite as well as I hoped. I will keep an eye on trying to figure out the influence, but according to YouTube, my videos not passing the automatic filter is a strike against being recommended by the algorithm. Then, when a review is requested and those requests are confirmed by review, that is another strike. I have no idea what triggers the limitations, and they do not tell you. What was unrestricted? The following were determined to not actually violate the rules as the automatic review determined. The police union's unwavering support of President Trump, 60 Minutes Crutcher Commentary Part 1, Neo-Racism, the Evolution of the Racist, Let's Clear the Air on the Electoral College, Equity and Capitalism, A Civilized Gun Control Debate, Armageddon Must Be Near, One Cop to Another, Jamaica JCF SWAT and Baltimore PD, Nuance Interview Episode 4, Police in 2020, UCAS Studios interviews Dr. Michael Wood Jr., the mobile version of A Civilized Gun Control Debate, Race is Not Real, but Racism Is, and We Are Not the Enemy. Just by listening to those titles, and for those that care to go see the thumbnails, I am sure you will also question how these videos are restricted. Go ahead and watch them, and I propose that you will be offended that YouTube wants to keep this information in the dark, you know what I mean. But stayed restricted. Just recently, I was contacted by an international producer and provided an interview about police handling of domestic violence. It was restricted automatically. Of course, it was restricted. Who could possibly gain from better understanding domestic violence? I asked for a manual review, and after review, it remains restricted, along with some of these other ones. Defund the police and human trafficking. Who could learn from how to stop human trafficking? You have police reform all wrong. A reporter interviews Dr. Michael Wood Jr. And it's restricted. No Justice, No Peace science stream. School Police science stream. Police, Crime, Violence, and More. Nuance interviews. What causes crime and what the police do about it. Minneapolis Defund the Police expert analysis with police management scholar Michael Wood Jr. The Desire for Punishment, an excerpt from Crimes and Punishments in the 21st Century, my philosophy book, the first version of it, anyway. Introduction to the Author, an excerpt from Crimes and Punishments in the 21st Century. Intro to Nuance with Roberto Alejandro and Michael Wood. And that's just an intro to a philosophy book. Joe Rogan Experience 670, Learning on the Big Stage Part 1 and then Part 2. Those videos are just me talking with Joe Rogan and then talking about what I was talking about. I have no idea why these have been confirmed after review, and no one will tell me. It is difficult for me to temper my reaction to these restrictions. I mean, who in the heck do these people think they are? And as you can see with the Joe Rogan videos, we all know that he was monetized and made tens of thousands of dollars off my appearance. But here, when I play clips of this appearance and add some context, it is considered not suitable and restricted. The crushing of the individual is real. In total, I requested a manual review of 23 videos that made no sense to be restricted. 10 were deemed suitable and unrestricted or unlimited, but 13 were confirmed by the YouTube review process. The rules do not make any sense or have any consistency, which is the same as no rules at all. It is just the subjective whims of the reviewer. In all, this is a direct disincentive for videos to be made on YouTube that scientifically address the police reform issues that Google, YouTube, and crew claim to care about. Much like many of the other criticisms I launched, I cannot help but look at actions. I do not care much about words or thoughts. What does someone actually do? And continually, I see people claiming to be the exact opposite of the outcomes from their actions. YouTube and its operators have and will continue to claim that they care about Black Lives Matter, police reform, science, and diversity, yet their actions have been and will continue to be the precise opposite. Maybe my desire to show this to the general public is the reason for minimizing my work. Adding to the complications is the newest terms of service, which include the ability for YouTube to monetize these restricted videos for themselves while still keeping it restricted or ineligible for me. I do not think I have the words to voice this frustration appropriately. They are also adding their ability to monetize videos that are not in the partner program. What this means is, let's say you post a video that goes viral and you haven't been invited into the partner program like the vast majority of YouTube accounts. They can then monetize that video for hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. And you get nothing. Now, I have worked extremely hard to be able to relay valuable and relevant information to you. Something tells me that many other industry-specific experts are in the same boat. And we do not have the ability or skill sets to change the cultural acceptance of this manipulation over information. Only you have the power to change this.
My name is Michael Wood. Since the age of 17, I've been willing to die in service to my community. In the U.S. Marine Corps, I was Sergeant Wood.
Michael Wood spent 11 years in the Baltimore Police Department.
Michael Wood is a very honest individual. He was not liked by the Baltimore City Police because he didn't play the good old boy network game.
As my career developed, I set out to understand why people offend, instead of how they offend.
The reason why these consent decrees don't do anything is because there's no enforcement or changing of the mechanism of incentives for the officers. So all you're doing is talking about it.
You're certainly was going to cross. I was ready to shoot if I had to, but I was never going to cross that line.
But you kind of wanted to shoot.
Sure. Get what you inspect, not what you expect.
So or anywhere that's populated is your metric is based off of arrest. So you don't actually go out and engage with the community because that would be time that you could be getting the arrest that you're expected to get to prove that you're a decent officer. So you actually don't have any incentive to communicate.
Michael, we should be looking for goals to not have people end up in the criminal justice system. Instead, every solution we have is to push them into the criminal justice system.
It should not be up to Jeff Sessions to determine how Baltimore Police Department operates. It should be up to the residents of Baltimore. Jeff Sessions doesn't know anything about policing, never has and never will.
I want to read a quote that you gave the Washington Post, which struck me. You said, when you work in policing, you're inundated early on with the us versus them mentality. It's ingrained in you that this is a war, and if someone isn't wearing a uniform, they're the enemy. It just becomes part of who you are, of how you do your job.
What I'm trying to say is that we are looking at people who are doing nothing new, and if we focus on the actions, then we can fix the things for next time, because when you focus on people, we end up thinking we can chop the head off, they put a new person in and something will change. But if we don't focus on the methodologies and the institutions, then we will be
put them in a prison cell, do the paperwork, go back out and do it again. So what we really need is to change the incentives and disincentives so that no matter what the role, we're still going towards that objective that actually serves
occupation, more vehicles, if your answer continues to be violent, because we have to understand that everything about policing is inherently violent. I have come in there with authority and told you what you will do.